Welcome back to another episode of Wednesday Wisdom on the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with today's Wednesday Wisdom guest, but we want to give a shout out to our podcast partners, We Coach and the Global Community of Women in High School Sports, two great organizations that you really need to be a part of. And now let's have a quick word from our podcast sponsors. We want to say thanks to Huddle for their support. Go to huddle.com. Huddle is how the world sees sports, and over 200,000 teams use Huddle to help their teams play better. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure our school was a Huddle school. And Huddle has the tools to help your teams, your coaches, your athletes play better. Huddle provides a complete solution for the challenges that you face. At Huddle, we believe in sports and teams believe in Huddle. Go to huddle.com and join the 6 million users and turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to say thanks to Gipper. Go to Gipper.com and see how athletic directors are creating world-class marketing content for their school's social media channel. You can do it in seconds on any device, and you don't need any experience. Go to Gipper.com and tell them you heard about it on the podcast. Use our code ADPOD10 and get 10% off. That's Gipper.com. Create custom branded content for your school's social media channel. We want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive, indoor scoring tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and check out their products that not only raise money for your department, but also create the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. That's sidelineinteractive.com, indoor scoring tables and video boards. Check them out today. We want to thank Snap Mobile for their support. Go to onsnap.com and check out their entire suite of platforms designed to help athletic directors do their job better. Snap Raise is a big part of their platform. Our coaches have used Snap Raise to raise thousands and thousands of dollars. It's so easy. And they even have a program where you can get your funding before you actually start your fundraiser. Snap Store allows you to order custom spirit gear. Snap Connect is their parent multilingual platform. Snap Spend as their money management system. And Snap Manage will help you create an entire website. You can find it all at onsnap.com. That's onsnap.com. We also want to say thanks to Final Forms, the industry leader in forms and registration. Final Forms can help your stakeholders with reminders about policies and physicals and all the forms that come when you have an athlete in the house. Final Forms can help your coaches with attendance and communication. And for you as an athletic director, Final Forms can help you with eligibility, with rosters, and all the reports that come across your desk. You know, it's time that you talk to a team that's walked in your shoes. To take the next steps, go to finalforms.com/Jake. It's finalforms.com/Jake to get started with Final Forms. We want to thank Wall of Fame by Vital Signs. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com and check out their touchscreen video consoles and their templates, which will help you recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school's record boards as well as your Hall of Fame, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. We also want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. If you go to hometownticketing.com, they're going to show you how to set up and sell tickets online and collect your revenue. And every step of the way, you'll have a dedicated client success manager. That's every step of the way. Hometown will also show you how to sell online tickets for things like school dances, school plays and concerts, even graduation. You can find it all at hometownticketing.com. And we want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your entire athletic program. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your parents or your student athletes, you're really missing out. Talk to the pros at athleticsurveys.com and let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Wednesday Wisdom on the Educational AD Podcast. I hope everybody had a great holiday, and hopefully you're still on some break before you have to go back to school. This is episode number 50. We've been doing this now for 50 weeks, and Misty Buck is our guest today. And this is Misty's fourth appearance on Wednesday Wisdom. She was one of our original professionals that contribute. So, Misty Buck, happy holidays, and welcome back to Wednesday Wisdom.
Happy holidays. I mean, 50, I feel like really special to be on such a milestone episode. Congratulations.
We had to work it that way because you have been such a great friend of the podcast, and you were in our original book. I didn't give Misty her due. She is, among other things, she's a professional life coach. She is a successful author. She's a podcast host herself. She was a former athlete, longtime coach, and she's part of our Wednesday Wisdom team, primarily in the area of mental health, but she certainly knows her way around the world of athletics. So, Misty, I'm going to stop talking. What do you have for our listeners today on Wednesday Wisdom?
Yeah, so for our Wednesday Wisdom, I wanted to chat a little bit about how to support your athletes when they are injured, because I mean, I guess there's a couple ways to look at this, but like we can start with physical injuries and how that can really impact an athlete, right? So I'm sure coaches out there, the ADs, everyone out there listening, you've probably dealt with this, and maybe you were an athlete yourself and you were injured and you understand that experience. But I was just having a conversation with somebody about it the other day. Actually, she's a professor over at UCLA, and we were talking about this, so I thought it would make a good topic today.
Yeah, you and I were talking before we came on about that continuum or tightrope, I guess, where kids, if they have an injury, whether it's a twisted ankle or whatever it is, they want to get back in. The coaches want them back in, and it's balancing all those factors. The physical, are they ready to come back and not do more damage? But at the same time, the emotional, the psychological, impact. Are they ready to go? So, what are some things that coaches or ADs can do to help with this?
Right. I think this is such a good topic. This was part of the conversation I was having the other day too, is I think it's so important that when an athlete is injured, I think it can feel really isolating, because you're not only dealing with your injuries and some of the other things that are going along as a result of that, right? Maybe some of the mental stuff you're thinking, oh my gosh, am I going to lose a scholarship now, or whatever's going through that individual's mindset. But it can just be like, wow, like now I'm literally on the sidelines, right? Like I'm not a part of this team anymore. And we see this as such a big issue when athletes retire and they're transitioning out of sport. So that issue of isolation, those issues of loss of camaraderie. And I think that injured athletes can experience those same losses, although hopefully they're temporary. They can experience those same losses. And I think one of the first ways that I think would be an awesome way to help athletes through this is to create a group where in your organization, where it doesn't matter what sport the athlete is playing, but there's like a peer support group for them. So injured athletes, here's a place for you to go where you guys can talk together about what you're experiencing, and then it won't feel so isolating. You'll be like, oh, okay, somebody else has the same fears that I do. And that it's in itself can be a tremendous relief.
No, I agree 100%. I think just looking back on my own experiences, when I was in high school and college, I think I saw both extremes, and I'm not, slamming my high school coaches. I just think it was the way we were back then. If you had an injured ankle or whatever it was, if you weren't practicing, you weren't even on their radar. And for me, I wanted to get back out there, and so I did everything I could to get back out there. And it wasn't, that isolation thing. I just wanted to get back and play. When I got to college, I think our coaches did a fantastic job. And this is a long time ago. This is back in 78, 79. but they would come by the training room, or they would come and see you on the sideline and say, hey, how you doing? We miss you. We need you out there. Listen to, Chad was a trainer. Listen to Coach Chad. Do everything he's telling you to. So there was that relationship that was still there. You were still part of the team, and so that's something. I made a lot of mistakes as a high school coach myself, but I think that's one area I did an okay job. I always tried to make sure those kids that were on the sidelines, still felt connected, just because it was the right thing to do, whether they were a starter or a substitute, just keep them connected.
Yeah, I love that connection piece, because when you think about it, if any kind of injury that you have, or even an illness, right? When you're sick, the last thing that you need to do is be stressed, because that emotional health piece feeds into those stress hormones and your body's ability to heal, right? So that's another way to look at it, that when you're able to relieve some of that, you can feel a little bit better, but maybe, I'm not a doctor, but perhaps even heal a little bit more efficiently. So I really love that piece. And the other thing that made me think of this is that I was jogging my memory as well. Earlier this year, I was speaking at a local high school about some of these things. And one of the students reached out to me, and he was like a soccer player, and he was experiencing injuring at that time. So he was not playing because of his injury. And he decided that he was actually going to start a peer support group for his entire school, for any athlete that was injured. If they wanted to come to this meetup, they could come and basically, again, be a place where you can share in your experience. The athletes today, as we know, the pressures just continue to mount as the expectations continue to mount. And Jake, we were even talking before we hopped on about how these kids aren't even getting breaks during winter break and holiday breaks. Like just life keeps continuing, and the sport keeps continuing, and there's camps and there's extra trainings and there's so many things. So, to feel like you're falling behind, I'm sure can feel really overwhelming. So, I think a peer group would really go a long way for any program.
That's so great that you had the student that had reached out on his own and was starting that. For a coach that might be listening, or an AD, and would like to, see something like that develop at their school, what would be some suggestions from your perspective that, that AD or that coach could take to, say, some student leaders, and kind of help guide them on those initial steps? What are some things, maybe, I hate to say do's and don'ts, but what are some ideas to help get that going at a school? Can you share anything? I know I'm putting you on the spot here.
Yeah. I mean, and I will preface this by saying I haven't actually been involved with creating one of these specific groups, but I think that number one, first and foremost, it's always important we talk about this a lot, right? About listen and really hear what it is that the student needs. So as coaches and as ADs, it's our job to guide them. It's our job to notice when maybe they could be looking at things with a different perspective and things of that nature, because we're all, I mean, every adult is still developing, but especially at that age, you're developing, right? But so just like really listening and respecting where they're coming from, because that validation alone can build trust. And then the trust helps you build this safe space where they can go. So I think even if you just say, okay, look, we're going to just do this. And maybe you have, we all identify athletes who are leaders, right? Students who are leaders. So maybe you might even have a student on your team who's looking to get more involved, and maybe they want to lead this project, right? Or maybe kids today are actually more and more engaged with the mental health and talking than we ever were. So you maybe actually be surprised if you were to just ask, like, hey, is this something anybody is interested in? And would anybody be interested in leading, and seeing where that goes? I definitely would suggest making sure that there is an adult present. I wouldn't just leave them to to having these conversations on their own without any type of supervision. So whether that's a school counselor, a coach, or however you choose to work it, I definitely think we need an adult present, just because, again, what adults bring to the table, right? We just, you have a different experience than they do. So,
No, absolutely. And again, the different perspectives, I think can just, build on each other, working with the kids. Misty, always great spending some time with you. If we've got a new listener, they might not be aware of, all the things that you can provide athletic directors and coaches. So, again, let's talk about the book. Let's talk about some of the other things you do. How can people get in touch with you? How can they find out more about, what Misty Buck can provide?
yeah, absolutely. So the website is purposesoulathletics.com. So purpose like PURPOSE, soul SOUL, and then athletics plural.com. I'm also all over social media. You can usually find me at the Misty Buck. That's typically my handle pretty much everywhere. So that's an easy way to reach me as well. Some resources that we have available. You mentioned the book. So there is the Athlete Mental Health Playbook, which was released a couple years ago in 2020. And that's a pretty cool thing because it's a thin book. It's not complicated. It's very simple to follow. There's a bunch of worksheets in there. Oh, you got it right there. You
Got my
come
copy.
prepared. You come prepared. So it's digestible. And actually this is really cool. So I just found out the other day that there's a program at UCLA that has incorporated this book into their curriculum, which I think is pretty cool. So actually what they do is they go through some of the chapters, the students go through the worksheets, and then there's a chapter in there called the 10 superpowered mindset shifts. And these students have to each pick a mindset shift and then present upon that and how they're going to incorporate it. So I think that was super cool to hear how that's being used by this major university. So I thought that was awesome. And then I'm also working on my second book. I don't know, I think I mentioned this to you before. This one should be out, hopefully, fingers crossed. We're going through the editing process in Q1 of 2023. And it is called the Athlete Branding Blueprint, a holistic guide to creating your legacy. So I know a lot of athletes out there are feeling more pressure to build their brand at different levels for different reasons. And this book, the whole first half of it, we focus on the mindset part, right? The inner work, because I adamantly believe the inner work is what makes the outer work happen. So it's all about authenticity, purpose, about negative thought habits, about overcoming fears and stress and imposter syndrome, and how do you address all those things that might come up. And then the second half is about how do you build your brand. Again, got to have worksheets in there because I have to help you apply things. That's like my least favorite thing when you take a workshop or a class or read a book and then you're like, now what? So so I have that included in there. So I'm really looking forward to that. So those are the projects, and of course always available for workshops or speaking, one-on-one coaching, whatever the case may be. Always happy to speak and be a resource. So that's what we got going on.
Oh, and again, that's great. I'm glad you mentioned that. And again, for listeners, Misty is also a very sought after, branding expert, for, businesses, corporations, entrepreneurs. So, that branding component as NIL continues to grow and have its impact at the high school level, Misty would be a great resource for you to have in your toolbox, we will say. So,
Love it.
Misty, I'm sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I just said I love it.
Okay. Misty, thanks so much for spending time with us. All the best with the book release coming out here soon, and looking forward to the next time we connect.
Yeah, me too. Thank you for having me on, and it's always a joy to speak with you. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season and a great start to your 2023.
Oh, you're too kind. For our listeners, remember the Zoom recordings of every interview get uploaded to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We appreciate you listening today. Come back next Wednesday for more Wednesday wisdom, and just about every day for new content on the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time. Thanks again for listening to today's Wednesday Wisdom episode. Before we go, we do want to give a shout out to our partners, We Coach, and the global community of women in high school sports, and to our sponsors. We have 8 sponsors. We've had them almost since the beginning, and they're products that I have personally used with just one exception. And you've heard me say it before, hometown ticketing. I retired just as online ticketing was coming into vogue, but I've talked to hundreds and hundreds of athletic directors across the country who all swear by hometown ticketing. So go to hometownticketing.com, talk to their pros, start selling online tickets at your school. We want to thank Sideline Interactive, indoor scoring tables and video boards. We've got one in our gym, and it's just fantastic. Go to sidelineinteractive.com for more information. Athletic surveys by LifeTrack. At my schools, we use surveys for just about everything. And the information that came back allowed us to really address the needs and know where the complaints were coming from. Athleticsurveys.com, or email them at info@athleticsurveys.com. Gipper.com. We use Gipper here for promoting our podcast episodes. You can use it to promote your athletes, your coaches, and your teams. Go to Gipper.com, use the podcast code ADPOD10 and get 10% off. Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle. As an AD, we were a Huddle school. Go to Huddle.com, join the 6 million users that use Huddle. Snap Mobile. We use Snap as a fundraiser at our schools with tremendous success. I don't know of any other fundraising organization that allows you to get your money up front before you've actually done your fundraiser. Go to onsnap.com. That's onsnap.com. Also want to say thanks to Final Forms, the industry leader in forms and registration. Go to finalforms.com/Jake for more information. That's finalforms.com/Jake. And finally, Wall of Fame by Vital Signs. Check out their indoor touchscreen consoles for your school's Hall of Fame and your school's record boards. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. We'll see you next time on Wednesday Wisdom and just about every day on the Educational AD Podcast.